In this video, I'm going to talk about how to release stand-up comedy on DistroKid. Stand-up comedy has gotten significantly more popular over the years. I'm a huge fan of stand-up, and I feel like maybe it's the birth of social media and sharing clips. I think a lot of like TikToks and shorts and reels going viral. Comedy is now way bigger than ever before. And as a result, a lot of stand-up comedians, like say they do an hour-long special, for example, will then release it as an audio format, as almost an album, right? Very similar to a musician. So in this video, I'm going to talk about pretty much the steps you should take if you are a comedian in terms of releasing your newest special on DistroKid. And I want to say as a side note, you should. You absolutely should. Now, first off, starting with kind of the basics, make sure you remove any copyrighted material. So on a lot of comedian specials, in the intro, there's usually like a video before they even get on stage of maybe them walking around that city, being backstage. Sometimes they have like Led Zeppelin playing or Drake or whoever, right? So they have actual copyrighted material. Of course, you cannot release that on DistroKid. So what I would do is make sure that the first track, the initial start, should be kind of jumping right into it. So maybe the initial start of that first track on your newest special or the comedy album will just say something like introducing Joe Schmo, and then you come out on stage, you start doing your routines. So make sure any kind of copyrighted material that might be in the visual format of that special is removed, right? Second thing is, as you can imagine, when it comes to an album, you do have numerous tracks. I do not suggest, let's say your album, or let's say your special, is 1 hour long. I don't suggest uploading a 1 hour clip and that's it. Of course, you want to kind of chop it up and make it tracks, whether it's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, however many it's going to be, just chop it up. And if you've never done this before, maybe talk to a friend who's a producer or an audio engineer. It's actually very easy to do, a lot easier than you think. I think the tricky part, and this comes down to the creativity of yourself, is where do you make the cuts from one track to another? Because of course, the last thing you want to have happen is you're telling a routine or a joke or a bit, you're building up to that punchline, and then the track ends, and then the next track's a punchline, right? It doesn't really make sense, right? Because people might listen to it straight through, like most people do with an album, or I guess it depends. Other people might click around, right? Especially like if it goes on Spotify, sometimes it might shuffle them. So you want to make sure that the cuts between each section of your special is done in such a way that kind of separates maybe one topic from another. Or if you're talking about the same topic, there's maybe like, a 3, 4, or 5 minute bit that you have, then you kind of pause, then you have another bit, right? So make sure you chop up the special in the best way that you can so it kind of flows in a track by track format. Lastly, when you go to upload this on DistroKid, I think sometimes people are like, well, it's a stand-up comedy special. Like, I don't know what to do in terms of, like, how is that different than music? Being honest, it is the exact same process. I have a video listed below in the description, an entire, like, uploading tutorial on DistroKid. I do suggest watching that because the way you upload comedy versus the way you upload music is exactly the same. Exactly the same. There's only one difference, which kind of is a difference, but kind of not, is the genre. Now, typically, when you're a musician and you upload, you pick a genre. You pick rock, hip-hop, EDM, classical, whatever. However, when it comes to comedy, your genre is just comedy. So when you go to upload it on DistroKid, in terms of picking that genre of the music, or not music, but genre of your uploads, it's just going to be comedy. You upload each track as normal. You upload the files. You have to create also a name. This is something that you do have to think about for each track, right? Because not only do you have that routine, but like so you're doing a bit about riding a bus, you can maybe just call it riding a bus or bus ride, right? So you do have to think of a name for each section of that special that you've already broken up into the right segments. You could kind of think of anything. I've even seen some comedians, I think just call it like track 1, track 2. I don't suggest doing that. At least maybe listen to that 1, 3 or 4, 5 minute clip and be like, all right, I'm talking about being on an airplane. You could either say flying on an airplane, or maybe you do some funny phrase or something like that. Like, or whatever, right? You do have to name each track. Then once you do, you upload it as normal. You also do have to have album artwork. You just need an actual square image, like 3000 by 3000, for example. You upload that. It's that seamless. And I do suggest doing this because I think if I was a comedian in this day and age, a lot of comedians are doing social media, of course, and I feel like you have to. I think maybe even more than music, if you're a comedian, you gotta be, posting those reels, TikToks, whether it's a crowd work or a quick bit, all this kind of stuff. But I think a big thing about comedy that's really nice, especially nowadays, is a lot of people are really into comedy more than ever before. And having that on Spotify and all these kind of platforms is great. DistroKid's only $23 a year for unlimited uploads. I feel like most comedians, it does depend. I feel like do about a special every year or two, give or take the comedian, sometimes between 1 and 3 years because you're still working on new stuff. But this is a great way also, too, to get passive income, right? You upload these routines, you put it as comedy. It could go on to iHeartRadio, it could go on to Spotify, Deezer, RDO, YouTube as well. It could go on all these different platforms, which gives you growth, but also passive income for people listening to it. Of course, as we all know, streams and downloads, actually downloads are kind of obsolete now. It's mainly just streams. Streams don't pay that much at all. But hey, something better than nothing, and you never know who might listen to one of your bits. And this happened to me where I'm, like, say, traveling. I'm listening to, like, a comedy station. I hear a bit, and I'm like, oh, this comedian's really funny. I've never heard of his or her name. I check them out. Now I'm a fan of theirs. I follow them on Instagram. Now I'm buying tickets for their show, seeing them live, etc., etc. I think when it comes to comedians, like I said, using DistroKid or just releasing your album, I keep saying album, your special as an album with each track separated accordingly is an excellent way to get yourself out there as a comedian.